Hi, I'm Mort Satin, and I'm the Salt Guru. Tuesday, April 20, 2010. A date which will live in nutritional infamy. The health and welfare of the population of the United States of America was, not so suddenly, but nevertheless deliberately, attacked by the combined forces of anti-salt activists, whose goal was to ignore the full body of existing scientific evidence on salt and health, and force through measures which may ultimately wreak havoc upon our food system and our dietary well-being, substituting bogus claims of the imminent deaths of hundreds of thousands of citizens from heart disease and stroke resulting from current levels of salt consumption. The Institute of Medicine's release of the report Strategies to Reduce Sodium Intake in the United States completely ignored the actual facts that our cardiovascular health and stroke status has never been better than it is today. Just look at the data from the National Center for Health Statistics at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Look at the brown line for stroke. Stroke deaths have gone from 250 per 100,000 population down to 70 or so. If my calculations are correct, that's a drop of more than 70%. Incredible. But what about heart disease? Well, let's take a look at the bright red line of heart disease. It appears to have gone from almost 800 per 100,000 population down to 40. That's also another 70% drop. But wait a minute. Our salt consumption hasn't dropped. We're eating the same or just slightly more salt than we did in 1950. Yet, according to the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics, our heart disease and stroke death rates have plummeted by 70%. That data notwithstanding, the Center for Science in the Public Interest claims that salt is responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths from stroke and heart disease each year. Now, admittedly, they never referred to any hard data, so where do they get their figures from? Well, looking back through the medical literature, I found an article entitled Reducing the Public Health Burden from Elevated Blood Pressure Levels in the United States by Lowering Intake of Dietary Sodium. This was written by Drs. Havas, Rochella, and L'Enfant in the January 2004 edition of the American Journal of Public Health. Now, in this article, which you can see is a commentary rather than a description of actual experimental data, the authors estimated that salt reduction would save 150,000 lives per year. They made no reference at all to clinical studies showing deaths due to specific levels of heart consumption at all. And more importantly, they avoided all reference whatsoever to the dramatic drop in cardiovascular disease and stroke death rates that they surely must have known about. After all, they were supposed to be objective experts, weren't they? Well, searching through the internet, I came across an interesting website for the World Action on Salt and Health, or simply WASH, W-A-S-H. This is a well-funded activist group whose singular aim, as you can see, is to bring about a reduction in salt intake throughout the world by reducing the amount of salt in processed foods as well as salt added to cooking and at the table. An activist advocacy group dedicated to reducing salt around the world. They are proud of their members and have them all listed on their website. And among the individuals listed as members, it's no particular surprise to see the staff of another activist group, the Center for Science in the Public Interest. But also listed are Doctors Havas, Rochella, and L'Enfant, the authors who came up with their estimate of the 150,000 lives to be lost if we continue to eat salt the way we do. Is it possible that their dedication to universal salt reduction may have influenced their thinking and their estimates? Might that be a reason to ignore the actual data on the reduction in heart disease and stroke death rates published by the CDC? So where does the IOM report leave us? I'll tell you where. It leaves us more confused than ever. It's not the first time that the eminent medical institutions in this country have led us astray. Does anyone remember the recommendations for women to take hormone replacement therapy? As you can see, that recommendation was based on limited research and on opinion rather than on sound scientific evidence. Does anybody remember the medical authorities crying out that egg consumption was inevitably going to lead to a quick and horrible death from clogged arteries? Now, that's all been reversed. And the more eggs you eat, the better. Should women take mammograms frequently, or should they refrain? Men. Should men take their PSAs every year, or does it lead to unnecessary treatments? That's what I mean when I say we are more confused than ever. We depend upon our great institutions for thoughtful, in-depth analysis and recommendations that are based on a thorough and objective evaluation of the scientific evidence. That's why we pay taxes to support them. We don't pay them to act like amateur activists parading around under the umbrella of institutional credibility. How can they manage to get it wrong so often? I think it's because they misunderstand their mission. When the data is not there, they should demand a clinical trial to fill in all the blanks, not treat the public as if they were guinea pigs. The IOM report, Strategies to Reduce Sodium Intakes, makes it very clear. The IOM fully intends to put the entire population of the United States into the largest clinical trial ever carried out in history, without the knowledge or consent of the people. Clearly stated in their report is the central element of their strategy to gradually lower salt intake in stages, and at every stage, check if this has caused any unintended consequences for the population. Now, isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that what a clinical trial is supposed to do? In fact, I'm a bit surprised at the media. With very, very few exceptions, they have accepted the IOM's approach without question, seemingly having made the complete transition from watchdogs to lapdogs in this matter. Salt is an essential nutrient that has stood the test of time. Our biology is the best indicator of how much we should consume, and the data from the National Center for Health Statistics bears out how well we are doing health-wise. On top of that, our life expectancy has never been better. The cold facts make it clear that we are living longer and better than ever before in history. Let's not start reversing this trend. This is the Salt Guru saying goodbye for now.